Welcome to the Beatles Talk Show. Today
Welcome.
is March 7th. Here's some cool Beatle facts from over the years. On this date in 1962, the Beatles put on their trademark suits for the first time.
Did they?
And they were on a bill recording for the BBC radio program called Teenagers Turn, Here We Go, recorded in Manchester. And the Beatles performed 3 songs, and they were all covers. They did Dream Baby by Roy Orbison.
Dream baby, I will have to dream alone.
Memphis by Chuck Berry.
Yeah.
And Please Mr. Postman, which recently was a hit for the Marvelettes.
That's right. You know, John never wanted to wear the Beatles suits. He wanted to continue wearing like the leather. He was dead against it, but Brian Epstein convinced him, like, look, man, if you want to be professional at that time, you have to put the suits on. And Paul agreed. He's like, yeah, man, we got to do it. So there you go.
And
Just so
possibly, one of the most important things that they did.
Well, signature now, the Beatles suits.
That's
Yeah.
right. And I mean, it did bring up just that respectability, and so...
That's true. Especially at that time, to get into London to play the big shows in front of the Queen and all that. I mean, it wouldn't have looked very good in leather.
Yeah, that's right. On this date in 1963, the Beatles performed a show at the Elizabethan Ballroom in Nottinghamshire.
Nottinghamshire.
And they were on a bill. There were 4 groups. The Beatles also played with Jerry and the Pacemakers, the Big Three, and Billy J. Kramer and the Dakotas. So, of course, 2 of those would also become big names in the British invasion. And all the bands traveled together on rented buses.
Were they not Brian Epstein's groups as well? Is that right?
Yes, all of them were.
I thought
Yep.
so. Yeah.
And on this date in 1964, I Want to Hold Your Hand is the #1 song in the United States now for a 6th straight week. This is the longest running American #1 by a British act
Yes.
in decades. And of course, the biggest now British-inspired rock song ever.
Well,
At that point.
putting into perspective here, let's just stay on this for a second. The song was so big. It was so huge. I mean, the impact. And the reason for that being, was there not much else happening on the charts in terms of that style of music? Was it kind of like a breakthrough in terms of, this is like teen spirit of the 60s? You know what I mean?
It wasn't totally unique, but it was fairly unique. Also out at the same time was Louie Louie by the Kingsmen, was a big hit as well.
Okay.
And of course the Beach Boys had been the biggest group of 1963 with
Yeah.
their, surf rock guitar sound. So it was sort of a combination that the Beach Boys had kind of helped make guitar bands kind of cool again.
Yeah.
So again, sometimes you just think it's just the timing was just right. It's like the market now wants this.
You know, and what I have understood over the years is that if the Beatles had not come to America in '64, the Beach Boys would probably have become and retained as being the biggest band in America, because they possibly were at that time.
It's definitely possible, but what we
songs.
don't know is if the British invasion had not happened, what would have happened instead in America. Now, maybe nothing would have happened, but maybe some other big group would take the Beach Boys idea, but do it twice as good, and the Beach Boys would be dethroned by somebody else.
True. We can't forget about Motown, because Motown, the black music, was huge, and it was becoming huge.
That's right.
See, at the same time as the British invasion, we had the Motown sound, and they were competing. They were like 2 different factions. Each one was as big as the other, basically.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know, you had the Motown for the African American kids, and then you had the British invasion for the white kids. But they melded so much together, right? They interspersed. Like, I mean, you couldn't like the Beatles without liking Stevie Wonder or whoever. Right, if you like rock and roll, you have to like that as well, I think. So it was quite a good period in music. Like, very fine songs came out of that time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
On this date in 1965, the Beatles were still in the Bahamas shooting their second movie, Help.
Still filming.
And today they were shooting footage at a wretched hospital for the handicapped and the elderly. And the Beatles said that they were actually disgusted seeing the conditions of this real hospital.
That's the one where they're sitting in wheelchairs with disguises, right? Is that like a quick flick? Yeah. Again, you got to see the movie. Good show.
On this date in 1967, the Beatles were in the recording studio still working on the song Lovely Rita.
Good song by Paul.
And on the same day, John went, or no, actually maybe John wasn't there, but there was a concert in Liverpool put on by Yoko Ono, performing a show she called Concert of Music for the Mind. And she would also give a lecture in Liverpool to the college art students.
Cool.
And she explained to them, there are never any sounds at my concerts because the real music is in people's minds.
Profound.
So that's pretty deep stuff, but that's pretty cool, you know. I mean, she's making her name and she's doing her thing.
That's true. That is true. You know, and that's probably why John fell in love with her, because she was so out there, and like him, right?
Yeah, that's right. He needed somebody unique, and she fit the bill. Yeah,
that's true.
On this date in 1976, Elton John was put into wax at Madame Tussauds Museum.
I must have heard.
And he was the first pop rock star to be put in wax since the Beatles in March 1964.
And of course, they're featured on the Sgt. Pepper cover, the wax dummies.
Right.
Right.
And on this date in 1982, the BBC broadcast a 2-hour special program called The Beatles at the Beeb. And this featured rare selections of the Beatles performing on those BBC radio shows that would not be re-released until like 20 years later.
So my dear friends, come back when you can.